Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Jeff Mason. I'm Executive Director of FreightWaves Media, and we're happy to present today's webinar in partnership with Trucker Tools. Today we'll be exploring how utilizing the right technologies to automate and streamline processes can help brokers to become the partner of choice for their customers. We'll be hearing insights from Prasad Galapelli, founder and CEO of Trucker Tools, as well as Tom Curie, who is Vice President of Strategic Development for Kingsgate Logistics. We'll also have a live Q&A with both speakers following the presentation. Before we start, a little bit of housekeeping. I'd like to first, if you have any issues during the webinar, please feel free to reach out to our team via the chat function on your Zoom control panel. Also, if you have questions that you would like to ask our presenters, please enter those through the Q&A button in the control panel, and we will answer as many of those as possible during the live audience Q&A following the speaker presentations. With that said, at this point, I will go ahead and turn it over to Prasad Galapelli, CEO of Trucker Tools.
Thank you, Jeff. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our session on winning in a digital world. In today's session, we will cover what are certain trends that are happening in the industry when it comes to digitization. Two, we'll also talk about the top challenges faced by brokers and 3PLs in this space. And more importantly, how we could overcome those challenges, or what are some of the strategies that you could adopt to overcome those challenges. And in that aspect, we'll hear from one of our customers, Kingsgate, Tom Curie, who is the Vice President at Kingsgate, will share his insights on that. You know, he's an amazing speaker. So with that, I'll hand it off to Tom to introduce himself and Kingsgate.
Yeah, so my name's Tom Curie. I've worked with Kingsgate Logistics for the last 3 years. Vice President of Strategic Development, which is a really nice, long, fancy title. Ultimately, what I get to do here is we focus on how do we, as a company, continue to evolve and prepare as our company grows. So we're a second-generation family-owned business. We're proud of that, and we have some of our third-generation family members who are actively involved in the organization. And so, as we looked at our company, part of the path that we've been chartering is making sure that we continue to have a thriving logistics business to continue to service our clients, as well as you know, our internal clients in terms of our employees as the industry changes. And so we're based out of Westchester, Ohio. We've got offices. We've got an office in Dayton as well as an office in the University of Cincinnati's Innovation Hub in Cincinnati, Ohio as well. And so we do a lot of full truckload and LTL freight and specialize primarily doing a lot of work with managed services clients where we kind of consume inbound and outbound freight to solve some supply chain challenges along the way.
That's good, Tom. Thanks for the introduction there. So for those who are not familiar with Trucker Tools, I'm going to just spend a couple of slides to give you a brief introduction of what we do. Trucker Tools is a cloud-based software that helps brokers and carriers with carrier capacity and real-time visibility platform. So what it covers is it helps 3PLs cover a load with a carrier, and once after covering the load, track the load from pickup to delivery, and help with scanning documents, and repeat that process in a nutshell. You can look at the whole process into two chunks. One is visibility, providing you the visibility of where from pickup to delivery of the load, and also helping cover a load with available trucks. And the whole platform is centered around our mobile app. It's called Truckatools. It sits on driver's smartphone, and today we have over 700,000 truckers who use our app. That translates into over 130,000 small carriers and owner-operators. Again, our strength is primarily the small carrier owner-operator segment. 10 trucks or less is our strongest user base. And the way the app is built is it provides a little less than 7 or 20 valuable features to the drivers. So it's not a one-trick pony for the driver, but it is an all-in-one app for the driver. So it provides everything from cheapest fuel on the route to parking to most accurate truck stop guide, truck washes, rest areas, name it, including FMCSA approved medical examiners. So the app is built as a work process tool for the driver with multiple features in it or multiple tools in it. And that helps us adopt or reduce the resistance from the drivers to adopt to our app. So with that, I'm going to shift gears a little bit and start our conversation on what are some of the latest trends that we are seeing in this space. The ones that we have seen is visibility has become table stakes in this year. Pretty much every 3PL broker or shipper that we spoke to has said visibility is the important thing. The other trend that we have seen that is very prevalent is most of these small carriers and owner-operators that form the core of the space are very comfortable in terms of adopting to technology. So most of them, almost all of them use smartphone apps to do their day-to-day job. If there is one complaint that they have, there is an app overload for this segment, especially on the driver side, they're facing an app overload. But they are very comfortable with technology, which is a very good sign for us. At this point, let me bring in our featured guest, Tom, to see his viewpoints on the latest trends.
Yeah, so Prasad and I, we've talked a lot about this, and there's this app fatigue that is happening amongst carriers and owner-operators. And I was at a conference back in May, and there were quite a few owner-operators who were there in attendance. And I think a lot of times as brokerages, we have a perspective that people don't want to be tracked and they don't want to use these technologies. And I think we think back to the cowboy days that everyone just runs and does whatever they want, and that's what they want. But I was really pleased to hear so many of those owner-operators who actually said, hey, we actually love being tracked. It's easier for us. We don't have to have as much communication. We can have visibility from the phone. And the complaint that we received was that they didn't want to have to download more apps. And so, it's kind of an interesting journey, because I think a lot of times we get caught up in what we think that customer unit may want. And we have found, and it's found to be true, that they have a very different perspective than maybe what we've thought from sitting in the office. And so we've seen good adoption because of that, and it's driving efficiencies for them in more ways than one. And at the end of the day, we're all expected to be able to have visibility, and if you're not adopting and capturing that visibility for your shippers and such, now it's going to continue to be an issue going forward.
Thank you, Tom, and thanks for sharing that viewpoint. I totally agree with you on that. That most of these carriers, they're not opposed to be tracked, but they just don't want to be downloading too many apps, or they don't want to be too many different systems, right? Technology systems to be tracked. I go back to my own experience many years back. I believe like 3 or 4 years back, I spoke to one of our owner-operators at a trade show. with a lot of hesitation towards, even before we launched our visibility tool, I asked him, how do you feel about it? He looked at me and said, I thought you already track us. So, the one segment that's very critical in visibility is drivers. And when we talk about drivers, we always think that they're old school. They don't know how to use technology. But interacting with drivers, they know how technology works, right. And they're comfortable as long as it is seamless and it provides a good experience. Right. On the same topic, we spoke to some owner operators. They said, yeah, I love booking loads right from the app. I don't need to talk to anyone. So we'll cover all of this, during our session a little further. But this is an interesting trend that we are seeing. Anything else, Tom, that you want to add?
Just the only other thing I would add to that, it was that feedback on app fatigue for us that made us look at some of the priorities that we had planned for our development team. So as we've expanded quite a bit in how we're working technology to our advantage as we continue to kind of prepare Kingsgate going forward. And the driver app was on our list, right? It was one of the things that we had talked about and things that we kind of had on our roadmap. And as we continue to hear that feedback for us, we were able to kind of evaluate and, again, the partnership that we have with Trucker Tools there, but then ultimately divert our development resources towards something else that was maybe a little bit more engaging or a little more exciting for the moment, sometimes in conjunction with Trucker Tools, sometimes outside of that wheelhouse, but it allowed us to really focus our efforts on avenues that we could, as opposed to just kind of staying through that app fatigue and adding to the pot.
Thanks for sharing those, Tom. So moving on, here are some of the challenges that we have been hearing from the brokers and 3PL community. The top three that we heard are visibility compliance, especially this year, has been one of the major issues that brokers and 3PLs are facing. In most cases, they're getting compliance that's less than 30%, or I've heard 10% or less in many cases. The second and third problems that we saw are carrier adoption to technology, which I think, Tom, you covered a little bit on app fatigue. People are getting frustrated with multiple systems, so there is this. Carriers don't want to be thrown into adopting to multiple technologies, which is resulting into a lot of carriers leaving the system after a load. And obviously, all of this falls into, how do we really address the operational efficiency for the brokers? At the end of the day, when we can really optimize this whole supply chain, everybody in this supply chain will win. So with that, I know, Tom, your company has faced some of these issues in the past, and your challenge or your goal is to address those, right? You want to share some thoughts on that?
Yeah. So a couple of things. Visibility. That's something that has just continued to be a heightened need for us as a company, and so I don't think we're anything different than anyone else, right? I think visibility is just an expectation going forward. Where that conversation became interesting is when you moved into that carrier adoption piece. As we kind of did that hunt for ourselves, it was really important to find platform that our carriers would adopt. And, I was fortunate enough that, before I was with the Kingsgate team, ran a fleet of about 200 owner operators. It was interesting because Trucker Tools was actually one of the applications that we would teach our owner operators about, to tell them, hey, here's a great tool to help you in your business, to help you be able to become more profitable or whatever it may be. And so we knew that the adoption piece was there. And really, as we talk about dealing with those, one load wonders, that kind of feeds into our operational efficiencies that we're looking to gain. And I know we're going to talk a little bit about some of the ways that we do that. But our team, our internal team, we're usually designed around one of two components. We're either working to get more, so it may be get more freight, whatever that may be, or we're working to do more. And so as we talk about some of the additional functionalities of the Trucker Tools platform and where it comes, that's where the operational efficiency really gains for us. And Prasad, I don't know if you've got it in here, but we are really positioning Trucker Tools as this cloud-based application to ultimately become our planning board for our tracking team. We are looking to use that so that all of those manual processes that we've seen in the past, the check calls and finding loads and finding trucks, that we're able to leverage this platform, which bolts nicely into our TMS, and use it to gain efficiencies for us, but also a better carrier experience. That's what helps us with the carrier adoption pieces, because as our carriers start to engage with us on this level, they end up getting more visibility, which is the same thing that we're asking for, right? We want more visibility, but so do the carriers. They want more visibility. They want to be able to have things right at their fingertips. And this kind of connection allows that to be pretty achievable, and really not very much time.
Tom, thanks for sharing that. And one important point that you made, it all comes down to carrier experience or the driver experience.
Yeah.
It's so much true in today's world that, I'm just going back a couple of slides here, or one slide. All the problems that most of the brokers face today, if we can bring them down to one common element, that is, if the technology can provide a better experience for carriers, especially drivers.
Yeah.
So the drivers adapt to the technology very well, and that solves the visibility problem. And in return, it also solves the carrier onboarding or carrier utilization problem, with whether it's booking the loads right from the app. So the whole operational efficiency and keeping that carrier within your net. Everything is solved with one core element, that is that carrier experience, or the carrier or the driver experience. And that's one of the things that is, as we dig in more every year, the more we're finding is it's that carrier experience.
Right. And it's a good point, because so what you're saying there, Prasad, is we're talking about winning in this digital world, this digital revolution that we're going through, specifically in our industry. And if you look at digital platforms that are seeing success, that are getting a lot of the headlines, the reason they're success is because there are carriers who are embracing that type of technology. And so if we as brokerages are going to look and say, well, carriers don't want to do that, but we continue to see how quickly not only shippers but carriers are adopting to this new digitization of our market, then we're kind of fooling ourselves and believing that nothing's happening, and we're kind of trying to pull the cover over our eyes.
You're so true about that. It is all, everybody is fighting for the same market, and that's, we can draw a parallel in other spaces. If you look at whether it's Google or Facebook, or in the recent side, it's Uber in taxi business. All these platforms were successful because they provided an amazing user experience and user value. So the end user, especially whether let's take Google, it's that user, or Facebook, it's a user. Uber, it's the both the driver, consumer booking a load or a taxi quickly. It's that experience, seamless experience that they experienced, is what's causing that revolution or such success that these companies have seen.
Yeah.
So with that, I want to shift our conversation slightly, and I've asked you a few times this question. what made you look at us? Why Trucker Tools? I'm sure you looked at few technologies at the same time. What certain things appealed to you?
Yeah, so there were a couple things specifically that we looked at. Well, one thing being really the use of the app. So, we knew that we were going to be in a space. We knew that an app-based tracking service was necessary for us as we continue to go. We wanted more accurate locations, and pinging cell towers wasn't the direction that we were going to be able to go if we were going to be able to rely on the data to actually run a lot of our operations. And so, it was really important that we found an app that would not just be solely an app for tracking, because we knew the ask there for the carrier, and we're incredibly focused on the user experience, whether that user is our shipper, is a carrier, or is an internal employee. And as we talk about the user experience, we wanted to make sure that this application, whatever it was, that it was gonna get us a few birds with the same stone. And so the fact that the app was really centered around the driver and honestly built for a driver before it ever became a tool for us was a big selling point. Again, myself, I was already familiar with it. I had already trained team members on how to use it and so on and so forth from years past. But it really highlighted the opportunity that was in there. You talk about 700,000 app downloads. You're talking about opening up a lot of opportunity to different people. For us, looking to reduce some of our check call volume so that we could refocus team members on other priorities. Help us fight some other fires or get involved in other accounts. Has been a big part of that journey for us, and as opposed to having to frequently call and frequently check, we've been able to trust the process and allow the actual work to be done from Trucker Tools, and so that's been a big game for us. But one of the things that was most interesting to us, and we've talked about this in the past, is when we go to build a relationship with another technology provider, and I think if you're a broker like ourselves, that you've probably got technology providers knocking on your door every single day, and it seems that you're trying to weed through and determine who are the ones that I should talk to and who are the ones I shouldn't talk to, and who's on my list that shouldn't be on my list, and it's kind of an interesting journey. And as we looked at the Trucker Tools platform, we looked at it in two different ways. We looked at the platform as it is today, but then we looked for more of the vision of what Trucker Tools was intending to do for our industry. And as we had that conversation, we found that as a company, they were aligned very well with us, that we wanted to try to get into a position where we could better leverage our current contracts, our current connectivity to carriers, our current network, in a better way and maybe a different way than has been done historically, which would then feed into a lot of different things that we want, right? More automation and better engagement across our carrier base, and less risk because we're not onboarding as many carriers. And so as we kind of heard that from the Trucker Tools team, it became pretty clear to us that we had visions that aligned very well for where we wanted to take technology. And so it just became a clear choice for us. And you're right, we looked at other vendors. We had used other vendors in the past, and just the direction and the speed at which Trucker Tools were making a lot of these changes and connecting with our own TMS provider, it really it was pretty much a no-brainer decision by the time we got done through it all.
Thank you very much, Tom, for all the kind words. We truly appreciate you being a customer. And two things that you mentioned I totally believe in is we have always been a driver-centric app. So driver experience, even before we had the visibility or the matching platforms built, it has always been the driver value. The second thing that we have focused as a Trucker Tools is software is part of our offering. The other part is our customer support and success. And that together is the whole offering to us. And I'll take that step one, a little further out. We at Trucker Tools never truly believe that the product is one and done. It's always a building, work in progress, and having customers like you and many others that actively participate in our roadmap is a key for us as we move forward, because we're barely scratching the surface here in terms of what can we do with technology and transportation. This is a continuous process. There is a lot that can be done, but it's not just one person or one company saying this is how it needs to be. It's a collaboration between various parties, and the parties are brokers, 3PLs on one side, carriers, especially owner-operators and small carriers on the other hand, and the technology provider being the third party to collaborate well. That's how we see it as a company. So with this, for the rest of the session, I want to split this into our conversations into two categories, especially to address two main focuses. One on the freight tracking side of the visibility side, and then the other one is how do we automate how we are automating the whole load matching side. So with tracking, for those who are not familiar with Trucker Tools tracking, as Tom said earlier, we are in app-based tracking. Our app uses the GPS on driver's smartphone, gives you a real-time visibility. Every 5 minutes you get that update. But more importantly, it's not that 5-minute update that you're looking at. It is giving you the most accurate pickup delivery confirmations and almost give you a real-time location of where your load is at any given time. And the way the whole system is built is it's very transparent to the driver when and how long the driver is being tracked for a particular load, and who gets to see that, who as a broker, right? So that transparency has helped the drivers to adopt better. And the last point I want to make on this is the way we built this tracking, we took two important problems and solved them. The one side is brokers want to know where the freight is at any given time. The visibility is an important thing. On the other hand, carriers, especially drivers and small carriers, they wanted help with detention. So we built what we call a wait time alert into the system. So when a driver arrives at a particular stop, and let's say he waits for an hour, the system automatically sends an alert to the broker saying that, hey, your driver has arrived at this location for an hour. So it's kind of like giving us a quick nudge and, would you want to talk to the shipper to get this guy loaded? That alert alone is what the drivers were asking for. We asked a bunch of owner-operators, said, how do you want us to help you with the detention? They all understand that's not going to go away. But what they wanted was the broker being involved in the process just a little bit. So by tying these two things, the visibility itself is, has value for both parties, and so the adoption rate has gone up. With that, I'm going to just leave this with and send the conversation back to Tom to see, his experience using our tracking or visibility solution.
I think the big conversation here circles around becoming a broker of choice. I think as we talk about becoming a broker of choice, we talk about it from two perspectives. We talk about our shippers and we talk about our carriers. And when you talk about something like these detention alerts, right? This is feeding both of those buckets. Our shippers don't want to pay detention, right? So if we can do the work up front of helping to educate and help them become familiar with when these situations are happening, usually someone can get involved and try to help solve that problem. Likewise, from a carrier perspective, they want people to know, hey, I've been sitting here for a little longer than I should be, because they've got other obligations and responsibilities that they want to be able to connect to. When we, as we've done tracking and compliance, a lot of people get concerned of, will people really accept it? And when we started this journey out, all we expected our operations team to do was literally just hit send on the load tracks. We didn't expect them to sell it. We didn't expect them to do a whole lot of nothing. And without even mentioning that it was happening, without even mentioning that we expected people to be tracked, we were already seeing over 50% compliance just by hitting send. And so as we've expanded on that now, we're seeing over 90% accuracy on our tracking, just from now, educating users and helping them get a better feel for what it is. And so in terms of being able to track, the tracking piece is a necessary piece because it's data. Everything on this journey that you're going to be doing as a broker going forward, you're going to find that data is key to the decisions that you're going to make and the offerings that you're going to be able to bring to your shippers and your carriers. It's going to be access to data. Carriers want access to, the pickup and delivery confirmations. They want to be able to know, what am I supposed to do? I can remember from riding in a truck with a guy, having to grab a sheet of paper every time we went somewhere and take it in with us. And well, now they can do that from their phone. They don't have to write down all these confirmation numbers, because even if they have it in their ELD doesn't typically leave their truck. And so they've still got to write it down and take it in there. Well, with the app, with this type of tracking, they don't have to do that. They get just a much better experience, and we've found that to be the case in our situation at least.
Thanks, Tom. You made a very important point on the detention as well. That takes me back to one of the latest or recent news articles that I read about some of the digital brokers either reducing the detention pay that they guarantee to these owner-operators through their app. I still believe that the approach that they have taken, I'm not picking on a competition here, but of paying the driver for the detention probably is still like putting a square plug in a round hole, because it was when we spoke to owner-operators, there was a very strong response from them on they don't really want that payment for the detention. All they want is to get loaded or get unloaded quickly and get off, so that that next load that they are either picking up is not delayed. So it's a continuous cycle. And one of the guys said, if I'm sitting there for a certain time, I'm already burning my clock. So I'm going to be, even though I can get out, I can't still drive that long to pick up my next load. So these points are important, and I believe FreightWaves has done a study on this where it said, I think if we can reduce the detention time by an hour a day or per stop, I think the additional capacity that we would add into the supply chain is about 20%. Things like that are the efficiency creators for us. I mean, we don't need more trucks. We just need to use them better.
Yeah.
So it's interesting how this is all shaping up. The future is, right?
Absolutely.
So I'm going to skip the next couple of slides there, primarily just for audience, how Truckatol's tracking is compared with other tracking solutions out there. Again, it's an all-in-one app which reduces stress for the driver. It's built with transparency, so there is buy-in from both sides. And here is a quick example of how a tracking looks. On the left-hand side, that's a typical tracking through Truckatol's. On the right-hand side, you see the stop with the alerts. Again, these are tied automatically in such a way that the driver has to do absolutely nothing. So one of the things I go back is driver experience is an important thing. The little that the technology depends on the driver to do, the better the driver set up to the technology. The more we ask the driver to do on the road, the less likely he is going to use the technology for. With that, Tom, do you have any closing thoughts on tracking before we go into the bigger part of the match?
Just the one thing that I would just mention is that the geofencing capabilities to actually be able to get alerts. We've got some shippers who want alerts multiple times for every event and everything that happens, and being able to be alerted when they break a geofence within a specific area or even a specific building is just really, it can provide a lot of peace of mind, especially if you're working on a specific hot load that you just really got to keep eyes on. You know, you may want to create some multiple geofences to say, hey, I want to know when he's 10 miles out, when he's 5 miles out, and when he's sitting right on top of the building. And that's just an increased layer of visibility that you can get with GPS that you can't get through some of those older technologies.
Thank you, Tom. And on the same topic, I would like to add one other thing that I know technology team has launched this year was geofences that are not just circles. So I remember one of our customers asking us, you know, we have a facility, but you know, if you put a circle around it, I don't know if the guy is stopping at a truck stop or at the facility.
Mm-hmm.
So our went and actually built custom geofences into this, which is basically you could draw an outline of a building and have that as a geofence for your stops. And that, like you said, you know, it reduces the dependency of a user, a broker sitting in front of a computer and trying to refresh it or try to see it, and just, you know, depend on the technology to provide accurate alerts. So with that, I'm going to shift our conversation slightly towards the digital freight matching, which I'm sure everybody is interested in. You know, people talk about it all the time. You know, we hear every day, you know, a lot of investment has been made in digital freight matching in various forms. So I'm going to take a quick couple of minutes of introducing our digital freight matching to the audience, those who are not familiar with it. Trucker Tools matching, which, you know, we all call this as digital freight matching, is centered around our mobile app. So the owner-operators, small carriers use the app to look at all the available loads in real time. So if I'm an owner-operator, I'm taking that as an example, and I work with Kingsgate and few other brokers. My experience as an owner-operator would be I could see all the available loads from my favorite brokers in real time. So these are actual available loads. You know, if the broker is willing to put a rate, I can see the rate, and if the broker has a book it now option on it, meaning I can actually book the load without talking to the broker, I can do it right from the app. On some loads, the broker might say, hey, here is a rate, but I want you to quote. Send your quote if you don't like this. I can negotiate right from the app. I can counter offer a particular load and say, hey, you offered it for $1,500, I'll take it for $1,550. So everything is fully automated, right? It's not a fully automated versus fully manual. It is anywhere in between based on the loads. So there is that flexibility built into it, which makes the carrier experience much better. The platform has many other features, such as giving you a real-time update on the reports of how the markets are trending, how the available loads versus available capacity in a particular market is fluctuating over a period of time, to give you an idea of where you want to put your resources. And it's got the predictive freight matching built in with the eye towards reloads. So when a carrier books a load with you as a broker, the goal is to keep the carrier for the next load on your system. So the carrier already looks at the other loads available from you and automatically can book the second load. With that, I'm going to shift our focus towards Book It Now, which is the fully automated experience for the carrier. Tom, do you have any comments before we go into Book It Now?
No, I think the bigger thing is to understand the success of a tool like this is really dependent on activity within an app. And so, you know, as we've all looked at digital freight solutions in our own brokerage businesses, you know, and many are talking about building their own or bolting on or whatever it is, where we found a lot of value is that we already had carriers being driven to this app and already leveraging this app. And so it makes a lot of sense from a user experience standpoint to be able to have them. Of course, I have a whole lot to say about fully automated Book It Now because we're excited about that, but I'll let you kind of lead into that before I jump ahead.
Okay, let's jump into the Book It Now right then, right? So for the audience, what you see on the screen, on the left-hand side, you see carrier, an owner-operator looking at the loads on the phone. On the right-hand side, you see a small carrier with the dispatcher in the office seeing these loads on the screen. They both are pretty much the same, and as soon as the carrier clicks the Book It Now, gets a quick confirmation, and the load is assigned to that carrier in the broker system. And the TMS will automatically send the rate confirmation, or the broker can choose to manually send the rate confirmation at that point. So that's in a nutshell, that's Book It Now. The goal of a Book It Now is, today most of these carriers are looking for loads. They want to look at loads in the middle of the night. They want to look at loads and not have to negotiate price. And most of the brokers are comfortable. The value that the brokers bring to the table is exactly for how much that load can move or will move on a particular lane. So, and your carriers. So by putting a platform like this, what we are doing is we're taking this relationship to that next level, your relationship with your carriers to that next level. So instead of your brokers fielding a bunch of calls from the carriers or calling a bunch of carriers, we're making this fully automated where the carrier books the load. There is little human interaction from your end, other than the fact that you're basically checking, making sure everything is intact for that load, so that you can focus your manual resources on some of the loads that require negotiations, that require human interaction. So that's the whole idea of the Book It Now. So with that, I'm going to go back to Tom to see his comments or his thoughts on where his company is going with this.
Yeah, so Book It Now is probably one of the most exciting tools that we've been working on here at Kingsgate, and part of the opportunity is we've found so many of our shippers and carriers leveraging these types of technologies to drive efficiency within their organization. And they're looking towards, us as brokers, right? We're supposed to be typically the leaders when it comes to adopting new technologies and putting them in place and helping shippers to be able to use them and leverage them. And so Book It Now has been an exciting project for us because I believe we're the first to have fully prepared a fully automated Book It Now functionality. And so what does that mean, a fully automated versus a semi-automated? Well, for us, because we have connectivity with the Trucker Tools team, they already have a feed and to understand who our carriers are, who are our qualified carriers versus aren't our qualified carriers. And we're able to provide Book It Now access to our carriers and say, hey, effective immediately, you can go through this app, you can see what loads we have available, and you can see the rate that we're willing to pay you for that load. What's great about the full automation that we have in place is as soon as they hit Book It, that data comes passed directly into our TMS, puts the carrier on the load. It automatically updates the rate and data and everything associated with that, and then automatically fires out the formal rate confirmation for them to execute and then go forward on the load, right? And so it does a lot of things for our carriers. Is that it gives them immediate access to freight. The days of living off of a load board and trying to be the first one to call is becoming more and more of a challenge as we continue to scale and do more and more as organizations. And so what we've found is that we've found adoption to be, there's a lot of excitement around it because this is part of what carriers are expecting from us. This isn't something that I believe people are going to think would be a nice feature. I think this is going to be an expectation going forward that they're going to expect to be able to have visibility and access to shipments without having to pay the charges that they have to pay to be able to have access to see current availability. And what's most exciting about it for us is if we were a brokerage completely on our own trying to build this and do this, we would be able to get some traction with a lot of our immediate carriers and our immediate network. But as you start talking about how vast the Trucker Tools network is and how many carriers are using that platform, our visibility is reaching, especially as other brokerages, as we all kind of work together to create this digital solution collaboratively. What we find is, maybe there's more than 10,000 loads on there. There's 100,000 loads on there. That gives the carriers more to choose from, more functionality, and just a better way to manage their business. And so, to me, as we talk about this digital revolution that we're all kind of experiencing in the industry, what I believe Book It Now does is it allows you to take your current brokerage and start to transform into a more of a digital brokerage. And I think it opens up two things. I think it opens up your current customers to additional capacity that you may not have or you may not know that could be available to you out there. But the second thing is I think it opens up your business to a new business segment. Digital freight brokerage is going to ultimately become an industry of its own, depending on how adoption looks. Is it going to take current market share? It's probably going to cut into current market share, but it's going to create market share as well. And this Book It Now solution, why we're so excited about it, is because it gives us the ability to feed the need of both our shippers and our carriers. This is going to allow us to focus on the efforts that are bringing more value to the supply chain as we consult and we work with them to solve different challenges that they may face by allowing our carriers to have direct access, immediate access to freight so that they know that their truck can be loaded, and then they can have all the visibility, all the information that they need to be able to then execute on that shipment. So we're really excited about it. We're excited to be at the top of that list to be able to go live with this, and it's a really exciting journey for the Kingsgate family, and I believe for our industry as we work collaboratively to change the face of how we continue to work going forward.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you. And a lot of it is, in this whole journey, there are two things that are very important. One is is digital freight matching going to be a change or not? It is how it's going to change. And on that same aspect, when we talk to customers like you, the conversation is, will this work or has this impacted? It's more like what percentage of my loads should go through this platform in a fully automated way versus semi-automated. We have heard customers that said, I want 100% of my freight to go through this. Some customers said, hey, we want it like 40%, 50%. It's everywhere in between, right? Mm-hmm. And the second thing is, the commitment towards excellence here. It all takes from your leadership team. Brokers today, when they are looking at platforms, have to understand that it is a top-down commitment. It's not a, tip your toes in various technologies. It is, you got to pick handful of technologies that who are going to make an impact to your organization and commit to that. Because technology can do a lot of things. Otherwise, we wouldn't have computers in the first place. We wouldn't have calculators in the first place. We would still be using paper and pencil. Right. So it's a journey that we have to commit to, and it needs to be committed from top down. So with that, I know we're approaching towards our end. Tom, do you have any wrap-up comment for our audience, especially given your journey? You're at the forefront. You have always been a spearhead in embracing technology to help a brokerage or an organization forward.
I think the key point that as we talk about kind of winning in this digital world is I think one thing that I would encourage people to do is you just got to start where you're at. If you don't have maybe the right partner to help you with that, I would encourage you to find the right partner in that journey. But by trying to turn a blind eye to what's happening in our industry, that's how people get swallowed up, right? And we believe that it's important to be a leader in this space and leverage these technologies. And does that mean that every technology solution that you put in place is going to be a gold mine and it's going to win you all the business? No, it's not. You're going to have some failures, you're going to have some bumps, and you're going to have some bruises. But it's important that you will not win in this digital world by choosing not to play in the digital space. So I think it's so important that for a lot of brokerages, you've just got to be willing to step out and start doing something with what you have now, because this expectation and this pressure that is coming into the marketplace, it's already being realized, and our ability to adapt to that and move in that will be incredibly important going forward.
Well, thank you, Tom. And I totally agree with you. It's a journey that everybody needs to commit to. And one of the things I share with I want to share with the audience is from a vendor point, when you pick vendors, look for vendors who are collaborative with you, because technology is not a one and done. You want a technology vendor who is fast-paced, who understands that the technology player only has half the role and let you play the other half in deciding the roadmap. So when you work with a technology partner as a collaborator, you get to put your problems on the table and discuss how to solve those. And together, you could build a technology that works for not today, but for the future. And it's not a one and done. If you put the responsibility on the partner and let them do their job, the vendor definitely appreciate that. At least the right vendors would appreciate that. And that relationship would go for a long, for many years to come.
Yeah.
That's pretty much all we have today. So I'm going to hand it back to Jeff for Q&A.
Thank you, Prasad. That was fantastic. Many thanks to you and Tom. For those of you that joined us late, we had Tom Curie, Vice President of Strategic Development for Kingsgate Logistics, and our host, Prasad Galapelli, CEO and founder of Trucker Tools. So what we'd like to do is we have a couple of questions here in our last few minutes, and I'll go ahead and start. Prasad, I guess for you, but it says, if I already have a TMS, how can I make the change to Trucker Tools?
So if you already have a TMS as a broker, more or less we might be already integrated with your TMS. All you would have to do is, if you reach out to our team, we could initiate that process, or more importantly, you can also initiate the process with your TMS to activate our tracking. Obviously, we want you to, to work with us before you activate the integration. The second case is, if you have a TMS, we are currently integrated with McLeod, MercuryGate, TMW is all right. We're going live with a few customers this week. So the major TMSs out there, we are already integrated with them. We are integrated with some of the smaller ones as well. And every day we are adding new TMSs. So if you have a TMS that we are not integrated with, it's the whole experience is very fast. We don't take too long. We also want you to help us get that integration moving, but if you are interested, we could get that rolling very quickly.
Great, thank you. I assume this is for Tom, but by what amount were you able to drive down your one and done carrier base by turning them into carriers that you reload on a regular basis?
So there's a couple of things that drive that. I don't have that number right here in front of me in terms of how many maybe carriers I've been able to reduce. We've watched our loads per carrier trend. That's kind of the metric that we use to determine kind of where we've been able to drive that. I know that earlier this year we were turning about 4 loads per carrier within a month, based off of the carriers that we were setting up, and we're seeing that climb closer to 5 now. So that's kind of the metric that we use. I think what's important to understand, there's 2 things that you have to watch when you look at that. Is you have to look at the landscape of the freight business that's being added. So if you're taking on new business that is in different lanes or different regions that maybe you've worked historically, you're going to see some of that increase at first. But we've actually been able to see a nice increase in our loads per carrier trend over the last couple of years as we've kind of adapted to more of these technologies.
Great. Thank you, Tom. I think this probably is for you as well. Let's see. What percent of your loads are you forecasting to be covered by the Buy It Now option?
So there's a couple of things with that. For us, we imagine that through kind of that Book It Now functionality, it's gonna grow with time, right? I don't expect that we're gonna flip the switch and we're gonna have 10, 15, 20% of our shipments that are gonna be covered by Book It Now. Where do I see us going is I see us where near 90 to 100% of our shipments are going to be covered through a Book It Now type of an option. I think that ideally where we'll end up finding a change is last minute shipments may not work for us for Book It Now. It may be something that takes a little bit of time, but we're so early into this. I mean, we are just now positioning to go live with Book It Now with our carrier base here in the next week. And so to say what that percentage is yet, I don't know, but I think that we're going to be one of those brokers that are really going to be looking for 90+%.
Very good. A couple more. What's Tom's experience using between the DFB and the manual FB?
So I think they're probably talking about digital freight brokerage versus the manual freight brokerage. So again, the digital freight brokerage is so new to us that it's hard to say too much about my experience. I can tell you that from all of our testing and such, there's good things there, and so we're pretty excited about it. The difference between that and the manual for us is just going to be all of the constant back and forth that we experience, and we know that we'll handle at least 10 to 15 calls on every shipment to actually get it to a covered status, and so we believe that leveraging this digital freight brokerage solution, even if I can reduce that on 5% of my shipments, it's a significant gain in terms of our operations and what we're having to do.
Very good. That's great information, guys. Looks like that's all the time we have for today. I want to thank everyone again for taking time to listen in, to Trucker Tools for partnering with us on today's presentation, and to Prasad and Tom for sharing your insights with us today. We hope you'll join us again next time. Until then, have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.